Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you by CrowCast, of course. Another heartbreaker for the Crows faithful, and it's getting to be a little bit of a regular occurrence with Collingwood, unfortunately. But good to see everyone on board tonight on Discord. We've got a couple of dozen on the YouTube, on the Discord chat, which is great. We've got people filing in on Discord, which is awesome. So don't forget, we are live and interactive. So make sure that you get around us and get involved in the chat. Joining me, of course, as always, the one, the only Macca. How are you, sir?
Well, I guess I'm the same as every other Crow supporter. Absolutely disappointed and partially pissed off.
Only partially?
Well, the rest will come later.
Yeah, pretty average, mate. Pretty average. Never mind. We will go through it as the night wears on. As I said, thank you to everyone who's joined us on Discord. If you haven't joined us on Discord already, get around us. The links are in various profiles and descriptions, etc., etc. Welcome to everyone who's joining us on YouTube. If you haven't already joined us on YouTube as a subscriber, please go ahead and click the like and subscribe, because that helps us spread the word of the CrowCast channel. We're in a pretty minimalistic format tonight in terms of our graphics, but that's all right. Never mind. We will continue to plug away. And Macca, before we get into the weekend's results, I'm very interested to hear your thoughts initially on what transpired on Saturday afternoon.
Well, it was, Shirley Bassey had a song, History Repeating. That's 4 times in a bloody row against Collingwood, to have every chance of winning and come up short every time. And I am bloody sick of Nick's saying that we practice for this situation. Do they practice against people in wheelchairs or something? Because when they come out against the real thing, they just don't do it, mate. It's pathetic. Pathetic. It's we play. You play your heart out for a whole game, and then let it slip by stupidity or by not doing the right things at the very end. Other teams know how to close a game off, and Nick keeps saying that we practice it. Well, I think we'd better get somebody else to start training him how to do it, because it doesn't happen. We lost to Essendon by 3 points. We had a draw against Brisbane. It's the same old story. We went to close games, we lose them, and it's not good enough.
No, it's not great, mate. It's not great at all. Look, there's lots, I think, that contribute to it. I think selection contributes to it. Substantially, to be honest with you, but also them saying that they train for this, they clearly don't. They don't.
No, because there is a way of doing it, and we don't do it. It's just unbelievable how bad we are at it. Because I thought we couldn't possibly lose that game at one stage, but of course we did manage to, with 2 minutes to go. But I just couldn't believe it.
Never mind, mate. Never mind. We, as the saying goes, life goes on. But we're certainly done and dusted in terms of our ability to make finals now. Wouldn't you agree?
It would take a miracle, and I don't think we've got it in us to do that miracle. I mean, we've got very few classy players, and one of them's got randomly, with that injury. That's one of our class players gone. No, I don't think we can do it.
Look, I agree with you, and it's now beholden on the club, in my opinion, to play the kids. Macca?
Yeah, I think they've got 2 things to do. They have to move heaven and earth to try and get some class players into the club. These ones that done their 7 years, and they might be restricted, or they might be totally free agents. I don't care what. They've got to get class into the club because we've got. And somebody says there's too many hacks. We do have too many hacks. Players that only just hold their spot in the in the team, and not in a good way either. So that's what lets us down, is the fact we've got these weak links that will let us down every time.
Well, look, I think it comes down to what the club values, Macca, and in my opinion, we value scrappers, we value hard workers, we value in and under players, and we don't place enough value on blokes with class and with poise and the ability to play outside. And unfortunately, we got stung early by a very vibrant Collingwood midfield that got on top of us early, and we were lazy in the midfield. There's a couple of examples that I could point to that show how lazy we were in the first quarter to let them get out to a bit of a break. And we at the death, when we needed to actually remain attacking and all the rest of it, just down the line, and aside from a moment of individual brilliance from Isaac that amounted to nothing more than a strained hamstring, we never actually took the game on. We just plugged away, and the players as a result that were involved, like Crouch and Laird and these blokes, we have seen too many times that they crack under pressure, Macca, and we saw it again. How much more evidence do we need on these players?
Well, for example, we started off we spoke last week and we agreed that we can't have Laird and Crouch. And Crouch is more valued than Laird, because of Laird, I don't care if he handballs a lot, at least he gives it to a bloody teammate. Whereas Laird, just whatever he gets just goes anywhere. And but who do we start with? We start with Laird in the centre, Crouch on the bench, and Dacos and Pendlebury thought, we'll have a picnic, absolute picnic. And it was a disgrace. And I just thought to myself, this guy has got no idea how to coach. He doesn't know who to start, how to stop people. He's got no idea. I think he just picks a team and hopes. That's all I can think.
Well, I just don't think he actually picks a team, Macca. Like, I'm sorry, and I know that Lockie Murphy had some moments, but on what basis is Lockie Murphy actually included in the side?
Absolutely right. I mean, he wouldn't get into most AFL, and yet he's in our lead, team of leaders. It's just not right.
There's actually no reason why Lockie Murphy should have been. There was no evidence to suggest that he should have been in the team, and yet he's picked in the team. We've got too many of these blokes that are just continually, like Chase Jones has gone downhill in my opinion since some reasonable form last year. We've got Brodie Smith, who continues to stink it up. We've got Rory Laird, who's gone backward this year. There's 3 or 4 players that the coach continues to rely on and goes to the well on, and they continually disappoint him. And it's bloody stupid, because if I was a coach, I wouldn't be relying on those players.
Yeah, I've seen it. Noticed one of the comment in the chat, which was going to steal my comment. Firstly, I wouldn't have had Murphy in. I would have had Schonberg in, and instead of McHenry, I would have had Berry on the bench. And but it's just it's the same every week. They just pick the same ones every week, and he's got his favourites, and he picks them. Smith, I mean, we're in a situation where we know that sensibly we can't make the finals. Now, Smith should be dropped, and we should bring in one of the young guys from the twos. That Oscar Ryan has apparently been playing well, and I'll give him a chance to play. It's just annoying. The whole thing is annoying, because I just don't think. Nix didn't do a bad job in taking us, scraping us from the bottom and getting us to a certain stage. But I don't think it's in him to go the last bit. To make us into a very good side, because we just fail when it mattered, when it really mattered.
Yeah. And look, I'm more interested in what happened at the beginning of the game, because at the beginning of the game we looked like we were going to get thumped at the beginning of the game, and it was only until we shut the game down a bit and started to get a bit more intense around the contest. But at the beginning of the game, there was a few instances, and Isaac Rankin was one, Matty Crouch was another, Rory Laird was another, that at various stages let Pendlebury and Dacos run free, right? And it was lazy football. And you just think, how can you not get up for an intense contest like this against a side that we have gotten close to in the last couple of years repeatedly? How can you not get up for this on the MCG? And yet we had blokes jogging in the first quarter when their opponents were running ragged.
Yeah, there's no argument about that. I mean, Dacos was having an absolute picnic. Pendlebury was having a picnic. And it's not just Nick Dacos, Josh Dacos was having a picnic too. Oh, and Chris, I forgot about him as well. He was having a picnic. I mean, they just looked like they didn't have an opponent.
The first goal that Pendlebury kicked, Matt Crouch was on him at the stoppage, and Matt Crouch was next to him at the stoppage, and then Matt Crouch just decided to wander off into like the centre square and just watch Pendlebury just wander in. Like, it was the laziest piece of football. And he wasn't the only one. I'm not picking on Matt Crouch. Like I said, Rankin was also not following his man. Rory Laird was also not doing it when he came on. Like, there was just laziness all around the ground.
The other thing I don't understand, what's with Dawson starting on a wing rather than in the centre?
Who knows? That's a coach trying to outsmart himself, in my opinion.
I just don't get it. I don't get it because we've always performed the best when we've had him in the centre. And again, we're playing a very good team that's got a very good midfield, and yet we've got potentially our best midfielder. If not that, he's at least there, up there at that level, and he's on a wing. I just don't get it. He did that against Queensland as well, not Queensland, Brisbane as well. And I just think to myself, he's outsmarts himself. Every time he tries to think of something different, he does something stupid.
Remember when Rory Sloane was still in his prime, and we had the temerity to line him up against Paddy Dangerfield and just let them go at it 1-on-1. And what a fantastic contest that was, and it was just brave coaching to say, all right, Rory, you're our number one guy. You go against their number one guy. And I would have thought that Geordie Dawson would have relished the opportunity to go with Scott Pendlebury all day, and he wasn't afforded the opportunity.
No, it was stupid. I just think you're quite right. We had it wrong right from the start, and we should continue to do it wrong all day. And I just don't think this coach has got any idea. I'm not trying to. I try not to bag him, but every time I think about it, I have to because of what I saw. What happened.
Yep. So, all right. Before we get any further into that, because there's a ton to talk about, Macca, why don't we just change it up for a little bit and get into the weekend's results, shall we?
Yep.
All right. So, the first game, the Suns, showing that you can beat an opposition that kicks 100 points if you kick 168. 26-8, 168 to 15-10, 100. Suns by 64.
Yeah, well, that was the third loss in a row for the Cats too. After the first quarter, the Cats just weren't in it at all. Because after the first quarter, the Suns kicked 22 goals to 10 in that period. Yeah. And it was their midfield that killed them. And they do have a good midfield with at least three of them that are up there with the best of them. Flanders was floating around in the back lines, and Lukosius, who he played in the back lines last week, at least the coach did apologise to him and say, I got it wrong. And he moved him up forward and he kicked 5 goals. So all in all, they were just far too good.
They were indeed. And Suns going all right. Swans, really good win, a statement win by Sydney, 17-15, 117 to 9-11, 65, 52 points. That's a very powerful win over a fellow contender, Macca.
Yeah, look, Mark, what I think about the Swans, I love the Swans, and that, not in the sense of barracking for them, but I love it the way they do things. They just pick the right players. They play it hard. They've got players that'll run. They've got the whole combination, and Carlton, they came out the blocks. They got 4 goals before the Swans had scored, and I thought, gee whiz, they got to give the Swans a hiding here, but no. The Swans have got class. They really have, and they kicked in the 13 of the next 14 goals to say, you might be a contender, mate, but you're not here. Just put them right back in their box. So Warner, Goulden, Heaney, they were 3 of the stars. And Hayward did pretty well. I wouldn't mind having him over here, and I hope we get him.
Yeah, and the only blemish for Sydney is Luke Parker's incident in the twos on the weekend.
Nice. Not nice. It didn't look...
the action of a frustrated man, and it just goes to show you that Sydney have a champion midfielder playing in the twos on form, and they don't care whether he gets frustrated or not. They play, they select on form. Mac, isn't that an interesting one?
Well, yes. Wasn't he there? Was he their captain last year?
I'm not sure about last year, but a recent captain, absolutely.
He certainly is. So, as you say, no, they're quite happy to drop the players and play very, very, very classy youngsters coming up and give them every opportunity to develop. And, Warner, he's developed fantastic this year. Heaney going onto the ball where Parker would be, and Heaney's developed much more by doing that and been outstanding. So, yeah, it just goes to show.
Well, it does. And, Sydney, Luke Parker is a favourite son for Sydney, and he's in the twos and obviously frustrated about it, and that was the action of a frustrated man. But it talks more, as far as I'm concerned, about selection integrity, Macca.
Well, they've certainly got that.
Yeah. Now, what's going on with the bloody Giants? Bulldogs 8-22, shocking kicking, 70 points to the Giants 6-7-43. Dogs by 27 in the end. What an absolute shit show.
Well, it was a shit show. It was played in very windy and wet conditions, and the quality of football was horrible, absolutely horrible to watch. And it really hurt my eyes watching it. There wasn't much good footy played there, and GWS have got a few good players out at the moment, but by the same token, they obviously don't have a heap of depth because they're not really firing like they were early in the season. The Bulldogs, who have not really impressed anybody so far this year, and not so much Bontempelli, but they had a guy called Ed Richards who they put in the middle, and he's gone really good. Treloar, he's been dominating. But there was even an incident where GW was so confused that Ward got the ball in the centre of the ground. He kicked it the wrong way, put it neatly onto an opponent's chest near goal, who kicked the goal. So it's GWS early in the season. Everybody's saying flag favourites, but the 3 losses in a row now. But 3 losses in a row say they're not.
Yeah, Bobby makes a good point on chat. Giants have been travelling for 2 months. May explain a little bit of it, but nonetheless, a disappointing result, I reckon, for them.
Very.
All right, where are we? So the next one is where are we? Oh, yeah, the Dockers, a solid win over St Kilda, 9-18. Again, bad kicking, 9-18, 72 to 8-7, 55, 17-point winners.
Yeah, 27 scoring shots to 15. But there was a classic, as I keep saying, Ross Lyon low-scoring game. But, to Freo's credit, they ground out a 17-point winner after missing all these shots for goal. Marshall and Jackson they both played very well in the ruck, but they sort of played away from each other. But it was Freo's mids, Sarong, Young, Brayshaw, far too good. And Ryan was outstanding in defence for Freo. But Freo deserved their win and probably should have won by a lot more.
That's true. I agree. And this one, how bad are Richmond at the moment? 26-7, 163 Brisbane, 119-point winners over Richmond, 6-8-44. Not much to say about this one. They are absolutely cooked at the moment.
Yeah, the only thing I will say that apparently they claim they've got 15 or 17 players out injured. Whether they're AFL class, I don't really know. But yeah, nothing to talk about here.
Not at all. Not at all. Tough being a Richmond supporter, but you're probably, happy that you're on the back of a couple of flags, so it doesn't matter too much. Essendon continued to defy critics and logic. 16-10-106. Obviously, a 40-point win over North 10-6-66, but find themselves in the top four, Essendon.
Yeah, pretty competitive first half. I think they were only about 7 points up or something at half time, isn't it? But the longer the game went, then Essendon's class took over, and the players like Merritt and Martin in particular, they just took over and led the team to victory. But I will say this: Davies Uniacke, I thought, played very, very well, and I think he's a free agent, isn't he? A restricted free agent. And if so, I think the Crows should be hunting him down. He's the type of player I would like to get into our club.
Yes, I agree. I think he'd be a good addition. I think any sort of experienced midfielder with some grunt and some ability to get through. His disposal isn't great at times, Mac, but he'd certainly be on the radar, I would have thought.
I hope so.
And then this one, this afternoon. Oh, my God. Port Adelaide, 11-14-80. Absolutely stole this game from stupid Hawthorn, 12-7-79.
Yeah. Stupid is quite right. But, Port Adelaide pulled the Houdini rabbit out of the hat that the Crows can't do, we can never do. I mean, seriously, it was about...
They were 11 points up with 45 seconds to go.
Yeah, and lost the game. It's unbelievable. Well, Port's won the game because, to their credit, they got the ball to.
It's like watching a basketball game. The amount of score that happened in the last minute of the game.
Bloody unbelievable, and just so they played so well for so long, Hawthorn, but they did that by attacking, Feen, and I think you mentioned it earlier about us. You go defensive and you try and hang on. Well, if you're not trying to score...
Well, that's what Hawthorn did. That's what Hawthorn did. They went defensive.
And
much
as I'm not a Port Parrot, you've got to give them credit. At least they did it. So I wish we could.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, fantastic win by Port Adelaide. They didn't look anywhere near it for most of the game. But good luck to them. And then in the last round, the score that I got, I think, was about 10 minutes to go. I had West Coast at 15-9-99, Melbourne 10-9-69. I'm assuming the Eagles got up. Yeah,
I only saw patches of it. That they end up getting by about 3 goals. I saw Harley Reid do some quite outstanding things. So there was one particular one which was centre bounce, ball knocked down. Harley gets the ball. A couple of people try and stop him. Fends them off. A couple of bounces, goal. And I thought, geez, you love to have one of those in our team coming up. And
ended up being 16-9-105 to 10-10-70. So a fantastic win by West Coast after a pretty average game last week by them. So look, a good comeback by them. 35-point winners or thereabouts.
Yeah. One thing with that, Melbourne do rely on Max Gawn to do well and to get the game started in the centre. And he's played up against Williams, and I don't know whether Max is not well or not, but he played, I thought, a very poor game by his own standards.
Yeah, they missed Lever as well, I think.
Yes, they would have missed him.
Yeah. All right, so the ladder, and I haven't taken into account the last game, but it doesn't really change anything anyway. So We've got the Swans on top, well clear, game and a half clear of Essendon on 30 points. Geelong and Port on 28 points make up the top four. Collingwood creeping up the ladder with points as well as percentage. GWS and Melbourne on 24 points, along with Gold Coast Suns in the 8. And then out of the 8, we have Freo and Carlton also on 24 points. The Bulldogs on 20, Brisbane on 18, Adelaide on 14, St Kilda on 12, Hawthorn on 12, West Coast now on 12, Richmond on 4, and Melbourne yet to open their account. So, yeah, like a couple of interesting results for the weekend, and the ladder just starting to heat up a little bit. Macca, we've got a bit of a logjam with the Giants, Melbourne, the Suns, Freo and Carlton on 24, and the Bulldogs and Brisbane nipping at their heels. But as we said at the outset, I think we're done, mate.
Well, I heard Rowie talking about this on 5AA, and he started off by saying that, well, we've got 3 winnable games in the next 3 games. And while that might be true, then somebody reminded him of the games that follow that. And then if you look at the games that follow that, then you start to think, well, I don't think we will make the finals, because then we've got to start playing some of the really top sides. So, yeah, I think we're done for. We've just blown... In those close games, in the draw, the loss by 3 points, the loss again by this one, in those 3 close games, which we train for, but we don't win. Yeah, that's done our season in.
Yeah. At the moment, you're looking like just ahead, mate. Just tilt your camera a little bit more.
Right.
There you go. There you go. Look at that. Now you look like a real person.
Oh, my God.
All right, let's move on to our game, and it was the Pies, 12-6-78, 4-point winners over Adelaide, 11-8, 74. As we've mentioned, a bit of a heartbreaker, although, you know, let's be honest, we did come from behind in the first place. We're 30 points down or thereabouts, and, you know, we're good enough to come back into the game, Macca.
Yep.
But you could kind of see that the moment that we got in front, Collingwood woke up from their little defensive slumber, and they were able to manufacture the win.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? Because they were travelling very poorly while they were leading, but we had that burst that got us to the front. And the commentator said, "You watch Collingwood wake up," and they did. It's as if they've been cruising. Oh, okay, this is my bar series. Okay, we'll pour it back on them. And yeah. It's as if that was a signal for them to start playing again.
Now, don't forget, just before we get into this, if you do have something to say, go ahead and stick your hand up in the virtual studio in Discord. And if you're chatting on YouTube and you feel like supporting the channel, don't forget there's that super chat function there. And if you do drop one in, I'll be sure to read that one out as well. Mac, it comes down to selection for mine. There's just too many issues with selection. So in comes Will Hamill, who was probably a reasonable option for Bobby Hill, and I thought that Will Hamill did a reasonable job. But Lockie Murphy is the one that came in for Daniel Curtin, and I can understand maybe dropping a tall out of defence, given the makeup of Collingwood's forward line, etc., etc. But having said that, why Lockie Murphy?
Yeah, I just want to digress just back to last week. First of all, Nick's killed that poor lad by. He's 197 centimetres and he's not all that fast. And he was placed on a guy who is 183 centimetres and quick and fast and dodging. And that was just a matchup that would guarantee that poor old Curtin would actually be made to look like a bloody fool. And the problem is not Curtin. The problem was the coach in that matchup. It was a disgraceful matchup. So I just want to have a real vomit about that, because that really still sits badly with me.
Oh, 100%. 100% agree with you, Macca. They set him up to fail. They put him on a fast, agile bloke. It wasn't the right matchup. They got it wrong against Brisbane, and they've hung this kid out to dry. It's been a terrible start to his career with the Adelaide Football Club. We made such an effort to get him in the first place with messing around with with draft picks and whatnot, and we will not develop him properly if we continue to do that sort of stuff.
Well, he got his first three. Archie got his first 3 goals. It was right, and literally was right in front with where I was sitting, and you could just see that it just was the greatest mismatch. After one of them, you would say, "Oh, I've got to make a change. That's never going to work," and give the lad a chance by moving him out somewhere else and putting. It was very, very easy. You could just put Jones straight back there. It was just as easy as that. Just swap Jones and Curtin. It would have been that easy, and they didn't do it anyhow. So poor old Curtin. He's made to look like an absolute bloody idiot by trying to play against a player that he's not capable of handling because of his size and inexperience. It was ridiculous. And then, as you said, then they bring in Lockie Murphy on what? A wing and a prayer. Yeah, absolutely hopeless.
Yeah, and again, no SANFL game this week. So, blokes like Dowling and Schoenberg and Samberry. Like, Samberry's the classic, Macca. And, to pull aside what you might think about Samberry, but Samberry had 2 or 3, he had a couple of really good sub games, and he was playing really well as a first choice player before he did his ankle. Right, so you would say well and truly in the best 23 at that point. Does his ankle? He's now wallowing in the 2s. He's had a bye, so no game this week. Lockie Murphy, who has done F all since he's come back, just elevates straight back in. Did he get David McKay's envelope with the pictures, do you think?
No, that goat picture, must be a bad one.
I would have loved to have seen Samberry try to snap that goal on the end instead of Ben Keys.
Oh, God almighty. Seriously. I love Ben Keys in terms of his efforts and trying and all the rest of it. Somebody has got to say to him, you have to learn to kick with your opposite.
So anyway, sorry, I led you into that. Let's go back to selection because there's a couple of other things. I don't want you to get off track. I thought Macca, I don't know what they see in Ned McHenry.
No, I made a little note about that. I was just thinking that really there's a lot of players before. You mentioned Berry, he's one. Schonberg's another, who you would think would have a lot more impact than Ned McHenry. Because Ned McHenry, they may have taken him when they should have taken Butters, and that's a fact. They took him instead of Butters. Well done. And he's no Butters, and he's not even an AFL footballer. He's had that many chances, and he does a little bit now and again, but they make you think, oh, maybe, but no. If you're going to be serious about being a good team and one that wants to win a flag, he's not in it.
Next, Brodie Smith. Now, I know Brodie Smith has been a stalwart for the club, but he has stunk it up all season. He continues to be a liability. He had a couple of good moments early in the game and then pretty much disappeared for the rest of the game.
Yep.
He is clearly in self-preservation mode. When he gets the ball in congestion, all he can do is tuck up and take the tackle. He has got no agility left. He is completely devoid of any creativity whatsoever. He offers us absolutely nothing off half back. Why can't the coach see it?
Well, everything you said is exactly true and correct, and very easy to see if you actually open your eyes and look. I don't know. I can't understand because everything you said is true. When it looks like there's going to be a confrontation, as you say, he just rolls into a ball and lets himself get grabbed. And if you give it to him, I got a free kick at one stage. And I said to Mr. Macca, "What's this? A beautiful dump kick down the line," and that's exactly what it was. I mean, but we had him. We were writing him off last year, Fee. We were writing him off last year. So what did he do? He gets elevated into the leadership group, and he's still out there. Seriously, look.
Yeah.
And probably a good thing having that loss if the club has any brains will say, well, we can't make that. Let's start just feeding in one or two of these younger players now and get them ready for next year. That's what we should be doing.
Yeah. Next player, Riley O'Brien. Now, you can debate the importance of a ruckman, but there is no doubt that Collingwood got a lot more out of Darcy Cameron than we got out of Riley O'Brien. Now, Darcy Cameron is on his, second, third club, I think? And there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be said for not focusing on ruckman as in terms of development, but actually trading for a ruckman that's ready to break through, which is Darcy Cameron started, I think, where did he start, in Sydney or somewhere, I think? Riley O'Brien.
He was up at Sydney, that was the fact. Yep.
Riley O'Brien tries hard, he's got a big heart, he's got a big engine, all the rest of it. He's not an AFL footballer, Macca. He doesn't have the skill set to be an AFL footballer.
The only thing I'll give Rob O'Brien, he's got heart. That's the only thing. He hasn't got ability.
I said that.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can give him. He's got heart. I'm very keen myself personally. There was Lloyd Meek he was a spare at Freo, I think it was, and I think the Hawthorn got him for Tuppence Halfpenny, and he's the type of thing player we should be picking up from other clubs when they've got one that's just sitting there that can't get in because they've got one or two good ruckmen, and playing in our twos to develop, because you're right, we will never, ever, ever win a flag while Rob O'Brien's our ruckman.
It's now that obvious, all right? Riley O'Brien, I think he took one mark that I can remember for the game, relatively late. Darcy Cameron had an influence on the game. Riley O'Brien, unfortunately, in my opinion, is just not an AFL ruckman. Someone threw up a stat on Big Footy saying that he'd had more hit-outs to advantage than any other ruckman. He'd also had 100 more centre attendances than any other ruckman. So, in terms of his actual percentage, he's 13th in the league for hit-outs to advantage, right? 13th in the league. So this is a senior player that's in our leadership group, because he knows how to read, and unfortunately doesn't know how to tap, and he doesn't know how to mark, and he doesn't know how to kip, and he doesn't know how to handball. He knows how to read, which is great, so he can read the coach's playbook, but he can't execute it.
I can't beat you on that one.
And the problem is that we've got Kieran Strachan in the twos, who's got his own limitations, right? But at least Kieran Strachan can ruck. At least Kieran Strachan can kick and handball. And if Kieran Strachan isn't good enough to displace Riley O'Brien as our main ruckman, then Kieran Strachan needs to be delisted, because at the moment, Riley O'Brien just seems to be an automatic selection, and he at times he cost us. He certainly cost us in a key moment late in the game, when he couldn't execute a base AFL skill, okay, but he's not giving us anything in the centre. When we win centre clearances, it's off the efforts of our midfielders, not the efforts of the ruckman. Okay, it's time that we move on from Riley O'Brien, in my opinion.
Oh, I think there's no argument about that at all, Pete. I mean, it is interesting, the three that you've really canned in a row there, in our leadership group, and none of them should probably be in the team.
Well, the next one, Rory Laird.
Now the desk. He's done. Certainly he's done as a midfield, in my opinion. He's if you're going to play him, you're going to have to play him. Look, he run 2 All-Australian Blazers on half-back flank. If you're going to play him on half-back flank or don't play him at all. Because at the moment, he is no good in the middle.
So why was Rory Laird in the middle during the last 3 or 4 minutes of the game instead of Matt Crouch?
And at the start of the game. For the first 5-10 minutes.
Now, you know that I'm not a Matt Crouch fan, but in comparison, it's not even close at the moment.
No, not even close. At least Crouch does get the ball, and Crouch will, and he might only handle it, but his handball's pretty good. And it's put it this way, his performance versus Laird's at the moment, he is about 5 times better than him at the moment. Laird is so poor at the moment. He's so poor. He doesn't deserve to be in the team virtually. As a midfielder, he doesn't deserve to be in the team. So, quite frankly, if you're going to use him in the back lines, or not at all.
So who would you say are the Collingwood coalface midfielders? Jack Crisp would be one. Maybe.
Well,
I mean, he's really the only one.
Well, no, Dacos is a genuine midfielder.
Genuine. I'm talking about coalface, in and under.
Oh, sorry, yeah, just the workhorses. Well, even Pendlebury's that now because of his age. He's 36 or 36, 37.
So between Dacos, Pendlebury and Crisp, they had about, about
91 position.
1,500 metres gained.
Yeah.
Right? Out of Crouch, Rankin and Laird, we had, take Rankin out of it, Crouch, Soligo and Laird. So at 132, 350, 460 odd. And then if you throw Rankin in there, he chucked in a lazy 700.
Yeah, the massive
by himself.
There's a massive amount of handballs compared to kicks. The trio that you nominated for Collingwood, they kicked the ball a lot. We handballed a lot.
Now, Macca, I'm not going to get into an argument with you, but what I'm going to say is that we can't have Matt Crouch and Rory Laird in the same team. I don't want Laird at halfback. He is not going to do anything. The competition is between Matt Crouch and Rory. I've got my reservations about Matt Crouch because I think that when the pressure is on, Matt Crouch returns to a norm, and that norm is 9 kicks and 25 handballs.
Look, somebody says they both need to go, and theoretically both do. No, I agree with you. I'm quite happy for Laird to be dropped. At the moment, I would say that Crouch is the one that deserves to be played, but it'd be nice to get midfielders of the level that we can actually get rid of both.
Well, so we do, Macca. We do. We have them, right? So it's just that they're not getting played. Okay, so when you've got a situation where our 2 prime midfielders, Crouch and Laird, have 14 kicks between. How many kicks was it again? Laird had 5. Crouch, 14 kicks between them in a game. In a game where we're actually kicking the ball, right? That we just can't have that. That's not going to win you games of football.
Well, I'm in the same camp as you.
But what I'm saying is we do have play. You're saying if we had midfielders that were good enough. We do. Well,
I would be fit, but I would be feeding them in one at a time, rather than making a great big. No, I heard what you said. I'll leave it over to you. You're making the call. You're going to drop both of them? Who are you going to put in the middle? You've got Soligo.
Soligo, Dawson, and Berry starting. Schoenberg in the rotation. And you feed in Dowling.
I wouldn't be totally against it, Dean, in the sense that
And then you've got Rankin as well going in there.
Oh yeah, he must be going in there as well. Look, I'm not totally against it because of the fact that I accept that we aren't going anywhere this year. So there's nothing to be lost by doing what you're suggesting.
I don't think there was anything to be lost at the beginning of the year. That's the point. We are at what's the ladder? We are at 3, 6, and 1, doing what we're currently doing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We are at 3, 6, and 1, so it's not worked. Now you can blame whatever you like, but the simple fact of the matter is we've had 10 games with 3, 6, and 1 in a season that we're expected to push for finals, and it hasn't worked. So the jury is in my opinion, Macca. All the arguments are gone. We're done. Matt Crouch, Rory Laird are not part of our next premiership push. They give us no value when pressure games, right? And we need to move them on. Simple as that.
Yeah, well, look, if we did that, I would not be against it at all.
Would you be against both of them being dropped next week?
No, I wouldn't be against it at all. I mean, quite frankly, I've accepted the fact that we're not going to go and win a flag this year. So if we're going to develop players who we think can get us a flag, yeah, I'm all for it.
All right. So we need Berry in, we need Schoenberg in, we need probably Dowling in, we need some midfield minutes for Rochelle, we need to continue with Saligo and Rankin. There's 6 players there, 6 players that we can rotate, plus Dawson.
Yes, and I think Dawson should be in there as well.
Which means that Crouch needs to go, Laird needs to go, Murphy needs to go, McHenry needs to go.
Well, I'm not against that thing.
I guess I know you're not, but I guess what I'm saying is that what we keep trotting out is these bloody plotters that aren't getting us anywhere.
Well, you're quite right because we lack pace. Isaac Rankin showed what pace in the midfield can actually do. The guy nearly got us up and off his own back. And he was stiff with that. Although he ran more than 15 metres, if you compare how far he ran to how far every other player ran for the day, I don't think he ran any further than the other players did.
Look, it was a dumb call, but it was a dumb call. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about selection, right?
I was really praising Rankin for the fact that he off his own back nearly got us up. That was the point I was trying to make.
Well, if you watch the stoppage where he kicked that beautiful little dribble goal, like he absolutely got himself in exactly the right spot for that at pace. At pace,
yeah, I know.
Look, I'm done. We could go on. Ben Keys, right? I know we praised him last week for his effort and all the rest of it, and I'm not saying necessarily that Ben Keys needs to be dropped, but we need to recognise what Ben Keys is, right? He had a very bad game under pressure against Collingwood, and I think we need to. Ben Keys should be not much more than what we're using Ned McHenry for now, in my opinion. A role player who can do a job and who at times you can chuck in for impact.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a role player, and sometimes his role is basically keeping everything open. But very annoyed with the fact that he can't kick with his other foot to the point where he tries to do a backhand side kick over his foot rather than just throw it onto your right boot, for God's sake. This makes me angry.
Well, and then the last one that I think we probably need to talk about is Chase Jones, who, at the very least, Chase Jones needs to be given a rest because he's steadily the scope of what he does on a football field has gone smaller and smaller and smaller. He's creating no run. He's not providing any aggressive disposal. He's missing targets. He's overrunning the ball. He's not tight on his opponent. Like his value, and I see Chase's value, but at the moment he's not providing that, and I think he needs a rest.
Well, he's certainly not playing very well, Pete, and he's a player whose ceiling isn't very high either, in the sense that even when he's playing at his very, very best, and he did have a period last year when he was playing well, but even then it's not like 35 possessions or anything like that. It's still only going to be the low 20s possession. So you're quite right, Pete. He's certainly playing very poorly.
Yeah, I think someone, and we've said it before, we've seen Chase's ceiling, unfortunately. And the problem with Chase is that unless he's playing to that ceiling, he's just a very average AFL player. When he's playing to his maximum, he's quite serviceable off a halfback flank, but anything under that maximum, and he starts to become a liability. And I thought he was a liability on the weekend.
Yeah, I'm being criticised in the chat for being a yes man, but it's hard when you agree.
God, they whinge when we disagree. They whinge when we agree. Bloody hell. Can't please the kids all the time, Macca.
No, I'm in a situation because of the fact that, you know, who I normally stick up for and who I don't stick up for, etc. But I am so sick of this mob losing when they should be winning, and it just goes to show that it, as a unit, whether it's the coach, whether it's the players, whether it's the whole thing as a compound, it doesn't bloody work. We certainly have to blame the list management team who provided us with McHenry and Jones when they could have got 2 stars, and we could go on and on and on. And so, in fairness to Nick's, he has got that handicap against him. But in recent times, we brought in 2 players into the club. We brought in Jones, we brought in Rankin, and Dawson, and they're the only 2 class players we've got in the club. We've only got 2 class players.
I disagree with that. I think we've got more class. I just think we don't give them a lot of opportunities. I think Nankervis has got class. I think Max Michaelani's got class.
I'm talking about the really up there players, Pete. I mean, the really ones that every other team would want.
I think that Max Michaelani will end up being that kind of a player.
He will. I agree with you.
I think that Drews is still a little bit out on Josh Rochelle. Nankervis, I think, has got a lot of upside because he has a lot of time with the ball. He's very, very composed. Sometimes his decision-making lets him down, but I think he's got a lot of upside, Macca.
Worrell is another one who could become.
Definitely Worrell, I think, will be up in the lever class of intercept defenders in the coming years.
But they're limited. We've only got a limited number. That was my point.
All right, so let's have a look at the Collingwood team. Let's have a look at your class players, and I'll go through the line. You probably got or side bottoms a bit past it. Scotty Pendlebury, the 2 Dacos boys, Bobby Hill.
They're full back.
I wouldn't even put DeGoey in that class, to be honest with you. So there's 4, right? Maybe 5, right? Maybe 5. They've got some very good second-tier players. Blokes like John Noble, blokes like Quaynor, blokes like Finn McRae, Will Hoskin-Elliott, those sort of blokes. That they are not your top-tier players, but they are very, very good second-tier players. Our problem is that we fall off a cliff very quickly because we continue to play blokes like bloody Brodie Smith and Rory Laird and these blokes, right? We need to be pushing our youngsters through. We need to be evolving this squad. And, all right, Nick's is all about experience, and we've seen what the bloody leadership group looks like. As I said, that's got us to 3-6-1 after 10 games. We're done with it. We're done with it now, right? Surely we're done with it now.
Well, we are, but I don't think they will be.
Well, we need to be, because what's the point in playing them?
Well, no, we're in agreement, but I think Nick's has his favourites and he'll keep playing them.
Yeah. And we haven't even talked about Pedler, who's out injured. We haven't even talked about Thilthorpe, who's out injured. You know, we haven't talked about Edwards, who's playing quite well. Poor old Zach Taylor hasn't been given a run in 2.5 years or whatever. He needs to be looked at. There are players that we need to understand what they bring. Billy Dowling, of course. I don't know who he shot, but apparently he shot somebody. You know, I just can't understand. I just can't understand why a coach that is coaching for his future would continue to hang his results on players that are clearly done. They're clearly done, Macca. Surely you would sit back and look at these guys and go, you know what, you're done, Brodie Smith. I can't rely on you anymore.
Well, again, I'll be crucified as a yes man because I agree with that. But I was against Brodie Smith last year. I thought he was done.
Well, I've been against Brodie Smith since 2015, right? But at least back then we could have got some bloody trade value out of him.
Yeah, I'm just sick of him. He does nothing special, but when he does get the ball, he just bombs it. I mean, it's just pointless.
Yeah. Bobby says in the chat, even Tex is done. Well, he's certainly injured at the moment, I believe. He's not presenting. He got done last week. He got done again this week. Unfortunately, we're in a situation where, missing Thilthorpe, our forward line is a little bit skewed. I think Elliott's not done a bad job. Not quite as prominent this week as he was last week. But again, we've got poor old Lucky Gallant sitting in the twos that gets played a couple of weeks, playing for his freaking life, not given a role. And all of a sudden, Tex is going to be done, and we're not going to have Lucky Gallant either. We can't hang our hats on young Tyler Welsh because he's only sputtering along at the moment. And then we've got Riley Thilthorpe, and then we don't know what the hell he's going to be. So, all of a sudden, our forward line looks, at times, particularly with our tools, Mac, looks very brittle.
Yeah, Fogg didn't have a big one, but I thought that unfortunately for Fogg, the way it was played and the way it was crowded, where near him, he likes it when he can be the man that goes for the ball, and I didn't think he got that many opportunities to do that clearly.
No, but again, what were we doing for the majority of the game, Macca?
Feed me a line. I'm not quite understanding.
Guy Man says being shit. Like for the majority of the game, we were going up and down the line, weren't we?
Yes, that's true.
So that's what you get, and this is where it comes. So we've gone through the players, right? Now let's go to the coach, because we have shown when we open the game up and change lanes and shift defences around, which is modern AFL football, that we can create lanes to run through. And that's when blokes like Chase Jones can show their weapons with their pace. That's when blokes like Geordie can start pinging the ball into forward 50. That's when blokes like Jake Saligo can get clear, Josh Rochelle can get clear. When we shift defences around left and right, which is modern AFL football, then we can make inroads. And as soon as you do that, your forward line becomes potent because you get guys making leads. It only takes Tex 10 metres to get separation and make a lead and get hit up on a lead. Same with Darcy Fogarty. But what do we do, Macca, for the whole freaking game? Up and down the line, up and down the line, up and down the line, up and down the line. It is absolutely maddening to me to watch us play like that. It drives me freaking insane.
It is annoying because at one stage there last year, we had several games in a row where we were playing beautifully with our crisscross football, as you say, changing lanes, changing directions, catching them, the pack would go to one side, we'd cross it back, and then come down the fat side into the open and catch them out. But we're not doing very much of that at all.
Can you recall one aggressive diagonal pass that we made into the corridor? I can't.
I thought there was one. I'm trying to think.
Isaac Rankin's first pass of the game.
Yeah,
straight, and the commentators actually bloody nailed it. Like, there was so little, and even Geordie Butts at the death, right? And good old, it's Geordie Butts, okay? So I don't blame him because he's not confident in his disposal, and the last thing that he would want to do is cough it up miskick it into the middle and turn it over. But there should have been someone around Geordie to get a short kick or a handball and to try and get away from that down the line, because all we did was just pump it straight into their hands. Darcy Cameron was sitting back. I don't know where. I think Riley Bryan might have been getting a pasty or something at the time because he wasn't around. But, we just popped it straight into their hands. What should have happened at that point was that we go back and around or we cut through. There were plenty of options there. There were 2 or 3 options. If you go back and have a look, there were two or three options in the corridor that Geordie Butts or someone around him could have picked off and shifted that whole defence and given us a clear shot at a pass inside 50. Okay?
Yeah,
but instead we just went down the line and back it came.
Yeah, look, you mentioned Jordan Butts. I thought he actually played a very good game, actually, and he had 16 disposals and took 5 marks. To me, he seems to think slowly once he's got the ball from it and working out what to do. And he was one of the ones that ended up kicking most, except on one occasion. I think he did a short pass, but then the rest of the time basically down the line. But that's not necessarily his fault in the sense that knowing how he plays and if a runner went past for a handball or since they made the short lead, well then it would be on it. But he ended up having no option virtually every time, and then just to go bombing down the line because it was allowed for him just to go back and stand there and look around. In other words, there were no other options, and very hard for a defender to make a switch when there's nobody giving him that lead.
Certainly not having a crack at Geordie by any stretch. As I said, he's not the player to be making that kick.
No, but there should be somebody helping him out. That's the point I'm making.
Absolutely. An experienced guy like Brodie Smith, maybe.
Well, yeah. Whether it be him or, even one of the less experienced guys like an Curvis or possibly.
But no. But what I'm getting at there, Macca, is that Nix reckons he likes to play these players because they're experienced, right?
Oh, right. Yeah.
So that is the very moment that you want your experienced player to stand up. Now, Smith's playing on a half-back flank. Geordie Butts gets the ball backward of the wing. Brodie Smith is the bloke that needed at that point to either run past him or to give him an option to get the ball out of Butts' hands and into an experienced player's hands, right? Simple as that. He had no one around him, okay, and he had no direction whatsoever, and I'm glad that Geordie didn't pull the trigger into the middle because he probably would have turned it over because he's a big defender. He's not there for his disposal. He's there for his defensive work. There needed to be someone around him. Unfortunately, the blokes that can bloody play can't be everywhere. So Rankin was obviously waiting for a crumb, and all the rest of it. They can't say that they drill these things if the result at 2 minutes to go or whatever it was when we're in front, the result is to bomb it down the line. That's not drilled. If that's drilled, then someone needs to be hung up.
No, there should be players running around in all directions to make leads so that they can actually waste possession, waste time.
Hang on to the ball, shift the defence around. We should have still been in attack mode at that point because we're only a couple of points up. We We could not sit back on our laurels. We've done that 3 times against Collingwood and got rolled. Okay, we should know by now that the only way to beat Collingwood is to continue to go forward, right? We needed to continue to go forward and not create 50-50 contests down the line. Okay, so if you're going to drill that, you're exactly right, Macca. You provide options, you run around, you split the defence, you wait for a lane, and then you push the ball forward and either score or try to create a forward 50 stoppage and then keep it in your forward 50, right? Not give it up at half back when half your players are out of position.
Which we actually did.
Yeah, exactly what we did.
Yeah.
So the coach is a dickhead. I'm sorry, but Matthew Nicks can't coach.
Well, I've said that all along, and I just can't. He keeps repeating the same old mantra that we practice this, and if we don't, we can't. Because we don't do it.
No, we don't practice it. We're not drilled in it. Our experienced players that he continues to pick don't play like experienced players when in the heat of battle, right? There was opportunities last week, opportunities this week. They don't stand up. We've got Tex Walker, for God's sakes, Macca, taking a mark 20 metres out from goal and looking to hand off.
I couldn't believe that. Yeah.
What is going on?
That was pretty ordinary.
Why is that? Why would he be looking to hand off?
I don't know whether he was trying to bring somebody into the game or whatever, but it was stupid, whatever.
He's a full forward. He's our most experienced forward. He's 20 metres out. He's got the best kick in the club, maybe with Darcy, and he's looking to hand off. The only bloke that's going to be calling for it is Seagull Benny Keys, who can't kick for shit.
True.
It's just so. Look, so all that said and done, and we haven't even really talked too much about the game yet. But all that's said and done, in my opinion, this is now the turning point. We've got games against teams that we should beat coming up before the bye, yes. And it's the perfect opportunity to reset.
Well, I'm in total agreement because common sense says we cannot make the final 8, and even if we did scrape it at the bottom of the 8, which would be a bloody miracle, we wouldn't be going anywhere anyhow. So we still got this bloody idiot as a coach for next year anyhow. So we should then be trying to find out what is our best team for next year, playing in a way that can consistently win games.
So what does it say then about the coaching group and the selection group when they do the inevitable, Macca, and don't do that?
Well, they're not good enough, but that's what it says.
But Tim Silvers is on record as saying that they think that Matthew Nicks is our next premiership coach. Adam Kelly has been singing Matthew Nicks's praises for the last 2 weeks. So what's going on? Well,
he's obviously got a 30-year contract. If he's going to be our next premiership coach.
I'm glad he doesn't have a 30-year contract because that means we wouldn't win a flag for the next 30 years.
Well, that'd be his only chance of winning one. I can't see him ever being coach of a premiership team.
No, me either. I can't. He doesn't have the chops. I said towards the end of last year and at the beginning of this year was going to tell us whether Matthew Nicks had the chops to be a premiership contending coach, and I think the jury's in. Right? I don't think he is. And yes, we only lost by 4 points. Yes, we lost to Brisbane we drew to Brisbane last week. Collingwood was short of players. Brisbane last week was short of players, and we were playing them at home. We've got a good record, actually, against Brisbane at home. This team that Matthew Nicks has got together at the moment is supposedly the team that he thinks is going to give us the best chance of going into the finals. And we're sitting at 3-6-1. So he's wrong. Matthew Nicks is just flat out wrong. And so is the rest of the match committee.
Totally agree.
there's nothing to be gained from continuing those players. And if they do continue with those, particularly over the next 4 to 6 weeks, when we've got probably our softest section of the fixture, okay, it's the perfect opportunity to get some of these young blokes into the team and to go and give Rory Laird and Matt Crouch something to think about. But I bet we don't.
Well, I think you're right on both counts. We should and we won't.
And that, in a nutshell, is why it's so frustrating at the moment to support this club, because I support the players whenever they run onto the ground, but by God, Macca, it's hard to support the club at the moment. And it has been for a long time. A long time. When is it going to change?
Well, I don't know, mate. You know, I'm one of the original members, and I can remember the glory days of 1997, 1998, even a couple of other periods where we've at least been a decent football team that could have won a premiership, but hasn't for one reason or another. But at the moment, I just can't see us doing anything for a long, long time, not with the players we've got.
I just don't think it's with the coach that we've got, because I think we don't know we don't know the players that we've got, Mac.
I'll correct that with the structure we've got at the moment.
Yeah. All right, let's look at some of the key stats for the Collingwood game. Adelaide, 409 disposals to 381. Same amount of kicks, 224, but we handballed more, 185 to 157. We had 9 more inside 50s than Collingwood, 58 to 49. Our disposal efficiency was better than Collingwood, 75.5 to 70. But our efficiency inside was low, 34.5 to 46.9. And that was pretty much because Collingwood were getting deeper entries because they were moving the ball further up the ground, and they tended to not bomb the ball in so much. They tended to try and shift us around.
Yeah, I thought that every time that Collingwood got around about the half-forward line, they cut back into the centre, which caught us out several times. Whereas we just, as you said, kept going right down the flanks all the way, which usually means it gets knocked out of bounds and nothing happened.
They rarely went in from that deep half-forward boundary side, did they, Mac? They tended, like you said, to cut back in and across and then come in on the fat side.
Yep, that's exactly what they did do.
Yep.
In fact, they got a lot of their score that way.
Yep. 8 free kicks to 11. I actually thought the game was really well umpired until that last one. I actually thought the umpires didn't have a negative impact on the game, so it was just a pity that last one went. Would it have cost us the game? Probably marginal. It looked like it was going to get tied up. Collingwood are very good at tying up the game but it would have been nice to have had the opportunity.
Yeah, I don't think we can say that it cost us the game because we don't know what would have happened after that. But I am annoyed that it was paid because of the fact that if you measured everybody's run for the game, there would be another 30, 40 runs that were as far as that run. You know, when the guys kick off from the
out from goal.
They run easily up to 30 metres at times, I reckon.
Well, half the time, by the time they kick it, they're 2/3 of the way to the 50-metre line, which in my maths is about 30 metres. And the goal square's 9 metres, so that's 21 metres.
Yep. And that's every time.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the reasons why I was really angry about it. What would have happened after that, we just don't know. But at least we would have had, it could have been a maybe. But this way, it was an impossibility.
It was snuffed out, yeah. And the unfortunate thing is it keeps happening against Collingwood.
Well, that thought crossed my mind too, because it wasn't even the umpire in play that called it. It was the umpire out of play.
I didn't
40
notice
metres
that.
back. Yeah, it was the umpire 40 metres back that called it.
So I wonder whether he actually saw the bounce.
That's what I think is the whole thing. I reckon he got it wrong because he didn't see the bounce. Because when he did do the bounce, he was weaving in and out of players, and he made.
That's right.
And it was, as I said, it was the umpire 40 metres back behind, and I honestly think he didn't see the bounce.
If it was the umpire 40 metres behind
Yep.
that made that call, then that's disgraceful.
Well, it was.
I wasn't aware that that's the case, because how can you see how far a guy's run from behind him? You haven't got the lateral view, right?
Yeah, but what I think, though, is that, and the commentators did mention that on one of the shows that I listened to, they said that that particular umpire probably had his vision blocked at some stage at the point of Rankin bouncing the ball, and thought he hadn't bounced the ball.
Just, like, had he not run too far and had that still been called, that would have been ridiculous. Imagine making that call with a minute to go. Like, that call never gets made. That it's just not ever made.
I know. I didn't know, but it is when it's Collingwood.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And, like Tone says, you can't say it cost us the game, because there are plenty of other instances, but it would have been nice for that play to have played out, I think.
Yeah.
So that's the only one that they look, to be honest with you, I think I'm finding it annoying that they're allowing players to hang on to the ball for so long when they're tackled at the moment, but at least that was paid consistently to both sides. But I just find it doesn't make any sense to me, Macca. You don't want blokes to get slung to the ground, but you basically make it almost impossible for players not to bring a guy to ground, because you're just letting the play go on and on and on and on and on.
Well, I think the umpires have got to take the blame for the dangerous tackle, because of the fact that at the moment, instead of playing holding the ball, it used to be like if you got the ball and you had an opportunity to dispose of it and you got grabbed, you were holding the ball. But they don't, and so the player who tackles him thinks, only way I'm going to get a free here is get this guy to ground.
That's right.
And that's the reason for the sling tackles. But
well, it's not the umpires; it's a directive. Because they're all doing it. It's quite consistent. It's not just the umpires' interpretation. That would be a directive from the umpires panel or the AFL.
Well, it's obviously that you're correct in saying that, because every game I watched, and I did watch them all, it was consistently played that way. So holding the ball is so rare these days, when it used to be very, very common. And I prefer the way they call it very, very quickly, because that way you just keep the play moving a lot more. Whereas now it just creates another great big maul all the time.
Yeah, that's right. Hit outs 38 apiece. Clearances 44-36 in Collingwood's favour. They won the centre clearances 13-11. Around stoppage, they got up on us a bit, 31-25. Contested possessions pretty even, 146 to 143. We got the ball outside a lot more, interestingly, 267 to 225. But again, our efficiency inside 50 was what let us down. So we wasted that outside ball. And I feel like Collingwood, for a large portion of the game, Macca, almost sat back and allowed us a little bit of ball, and they just kept basically sagging back to our half forward line, and just were prepared to allow us to come at them. Is that the way you saw
it? To some degree, that they always, in their mind, they always had it covered though, Feen. They were working back, so they always had the option to cover it. But they did allow that at times, and I don't know whether it's an energy saving thing or what they do, but it's something they do. But they don't leave anybody on their own, even while they do that. So it seems to be a trait that they have in doing that, but it seems to work for them.
Yep.
You think you could argue that one of the things it does do is, by doing that, is that if the ball gets turned over and they get it, they've got clear space to kick into.
Well, and that's why it plays into their hands, where you just bomb it in, right? Like if they're dropping back and sagging back and loading their half back line, the last thing you want to be doing is dropping it on their heads. You want to be shifting around and trying to find a lane and hitting up short passes. And when we did drop our eyes and hit up a short pass or two, it worked, but we just didn't seem to do it, and we weren't able to get separation with our big forwards like Tex and Fogg to be able to make those short, sharp leads. Again, is it training? Is it ability? I'm not sure.
Yeah, Collingwood, they got 2 or 3 goals out of those quick rebounds because when
Yes,
they
that's
caught
right.
up, they drop back, we go up, they suck us up further and further, and then they get the ball and they go over the top, and then we're in strike, and that caught us out 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, and I guess when I'm watching us play at the moment, there are just sometimes where you just want to bang your head against the TV because it's so obvious, and you wonder if it's obvious for Joe Schmuck Phoenix watching the TV. What are the coaches seeing? Surely the coaches are seeing that as well. Surely there's a message that can go up to say, this is what they're doing. So hit up short passes, shift the defence around, try and find a lane. Don't just drop it on their heads. You would think that would be quite obvious to the massive brains trust of no-hopers we've got sitting in the bloody coach's box.
Well, the only obvious move I've seen from Nix in recent times is moving the fly off his head.
And dropping the Petsy in his lap. Anyway.
That was the follow-up.
Possession was fairly even during the course of the game. 98 marks to 85, which shows that we were kicking the ball to the outside and trying to do that, but to no avail. Marks inside 50, 10 to 9, contested marks 11 to 12, so that wasn't a big deal. Defensively, tackles were even, 68 apiece. Tackles inside 50, we were 5 up, 19 to 14. That was really the tail of the tape, Mac. Yeah, we did have a fair amount of that game. They got off to a fast start, and the fact that we were able to work our way in it, particularly, we worked our way back into it quite methodically. I felt, but it felt. It felt like Collingwood were almost sleeping. Do you know what I mean? It didn't actually feel like we were beating them at their own game or we were cutting through them. It just felt like Collingwood would just I wouldn't say they took the foot off the pedal, but they were just in some sort of, holding pattern to see what. Like, it was almost like, we got the first 5 or so. Like, we've shown that we can beat these guys. We killed them in the first 20 minutes of the game. Now we're just going to let it play out, and then when the whips are cracking, we're just going to do whatever we need to do.
Yeah, to some degree, Collingwood wait for you to make the error, and of course, unless you're a very, very, very good club with very classy players who always do it right, there always will be an error. And that's what they thrive on, because once they do it, their counter attack is very, very fast and very good.
Yeah, and that's why you need to control the ball and maintain possession, right? You don't want to be just dropping it onto a 50-50 contest at half-back with Collingwood. That's exactly what they want you to do.
Yep. The other thing, as an incidental, I think it's a sad situation when we actually make Frampton look good.
I don't think we made Billy look good. We had a couple of moments. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, but I don't even think he's an AFL player, but he does well in their team.
Well, it's about horses for courses. Who do we have up against him?
Well, that's the point.
That's right.
He was probably, he's probably standing, I don't know, Himmelberg, somebody like that. He certainly wasn't taking any key players. Yeah.
So let's look at some individuals, shall we? Matt Crouch, 34 disposals, 9 kicks, 25 handballs. He went at 73.5% disposal efficiency, Macca, which on the surface isn't bad, but then you realise that he went at 55.6% kicking efficiency, which means of the 9 kicks that he did, only 5 of them were effective. So 5 effective kicks for the game. And that was about it. Only 2 inside 50s, only 1 rebound 50, 132 metres gained, 13 contested possessions, 21 uncontested possessions, 10 ground ball gets, 2 tackles. Him and Laird were both sort of in that 65 to 70 time on ground mark. But, 4 stoppage clearances, 5 in total, so only 1 in the middle. 7 score involvements isn't bad. But I don't know, Mac. I just feel like it's time we moved on from Matty Crouch.
Yeah, but I think for the game he gets a pass though. I think his efforts were okay. And if you're trying to list for our best 5 players, he's definitely in that list.
I wouldn't put him in the best 5. Maybe put him in the best 10. I don't have a problem with Matt Crouch because what you see is what you get with Matt Crouch. Okay, yeah. And he's a very, very good extractor. Okay, very good.
Well, that's why I've got him in my top 5 because some of those balls he gets are pretty hard balls. He's prepared to take a knock to get the ball, and which a lot of our players aren't. And I
agree with that. I'd like to one day do an analysis on the net gain of Matt Crouch, because for as much as Matt Crouch does really well at the coalface and extracting and all the rest of it, his opponent does a lot of damage, and his opponent did a lot of damage this week.
Well, it depends on which one of his opponents was his, but overall we did get beaten comprehensively in the middle.
Well, I mean, his opponent had to be at various stages Nick Dacos, Scott Pendlebury,
or Chris.
Jordan DeGoey, or Jack Crisp, and they all towed us up. So, I mean, take your pick.
I'm not arguing about that. I'm just saying that from the point of view of what our players did, he was one of the best.
One of the better players.
All right, better.
Well, he can't be a damaging midfielder and get 9 kicks. I'm sorry, can't. It doesn't. That's not the modern game. We're not playing in the 80s with Diesel Williams and all those blokes. We're not playing that style of football anymore. Long gone.
Yeah, look, we're in agreement on that, but we talked about on the game, Bloody Magic says move on. Okay.
Well, Bloody Magic isn't our bloody director, so he can get stuffed. I'm just saying that, like, as good as Matty Crouch is for what he is, and he's one of the best at what he does, right? But do we need that type of player? I don't think so.
Well, while you're right, we just have to develop that type of player that can take his place.
But do we need that type of player?
No, sorry. We need somebody who can take his place.
I think we need. I think the game's moved. Like, there's not a lot of teams now that have those dedicated extractors like your Tom Mitchell and those sorts. They've kind of been phased out of the game. When you have a look at the makeup of a lot of the good midfielders, they still have good inside midfielders, but they also have the ability to get the ball outside and make an impact on the outside. And that's not Matt, really. We'd be one of the few teams, I reckon, that still have that dedicated inside grunt midfielder.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Ranks 30 touches, 16 of 14, 73% disposal efficiency. Kicked 1 goal. How many kicked? Kicked a couple of goals, I think. 22 of those disposals were effective. 700 metres gained. 16 contested possessions. So every second possession that he had was contested. Macca, 10 ground ball gets, 4 intercept possessions, 93% time on ground. That's a very interesting stat, Macca.
Yeah, sadly, it's probably one of the reasons why he did his hammy in there, because the amount of running he did. It'd be interesting to see a heat map of his actual travels, because he had spent a lot of time on the ball as well, and as you say, a lot of time on ground, and his work rate was massive, absolutely massive, and he was easily our best player, easily.
This was a player that was earmarked at the beginning of the year and last year that didn't have the tank for the midfield, wasn't a midfielder, was a forward, and la 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 la. It's unbelievable how much that's flipped.
Yeah, well,
And he's
you know,
forced that on them. He's forced that on them.
he was magic. His was a magic performance, and it's
Yeah.
a damn shame about his hamstring because um, even though we were a losing team, for me, he mightn't have got best on ground because of Dacos, but he's certainly second best player on the ground, and and definitely our best player.
Yeah. Yeah, stats across all categories was just a fantastic all-round performance, and we're going to miss him. We're going to miss him, but it gives an opportunity for a young lad to come in and show what they're worth.
I hope so.
Because sadly, we haven't got any more seniors in the twos. Otherwise, they'd bring that one in. Geordie Dawson, after a slowish start, I felt, particularly in the second half, I thought he was excellent. Macca, 29 touches, 16 kicks, 13 handballs. What's that? Yeah, 19 effective disposals, 405 metres gained. 12 contested possessions. The coach is throwing him around a bit at the moment, but I felt like when he was moved in to the centre and into the clearances, he did very well.
He played everywhere again, and I thought as the game went on, he just got better and better and better. In fact, I thought that his last two quarters in particular were outstanding, and he was second best to Rankin. And I thought he played a mighty game. He played it like a captain. He gave it everything. Some of his marks he took towards the end of the game, they were absolutely outstanding.
Yeah,
he's a phenomenal mark for his side. Phenomenal.
Yeah, he plays very tall, doesn't he?
Yep.
Yep. Mitch Hinge, I thought, had the best game for the season. Somewhat back to his best now, rebounding off halfback Macca, 16 kicks at 96% disposal efficiency. So I thought that was really good. Kicking efficiency at 100%. Gained us 298 metres. Let's have a look at his rebound 50s. 4 rebound 50s, 1 inside 50. He's great off halfback. I'd actually like to see him play it a little bit higher, but I don't think we can afford to at the moment. But it'd be great to see him pinging into forward 50.
Oh, that goal he kicked! What a beautiful kick that was.
It was under pressure too.
There was a magic kick, absolutely magic kick, and it sailed through. It didn't just get there; it sailed through.
Yeah,
and I remember early in the season, we were actually having a crack at Hinge because he's. I think at one game he had about like a 20 or 30% efficiency rate.
Yeah, his kicking was way off. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's right back. He's got it 100% back again, and when his legs working, there aren't too many legs better than his. He was in top form again on the weekend.
Yeah, good to see him back in form. Jake Saligo, I felt it was a really, really, really good learning game for Jake Saligo, I thought. I felt like he got 24 touches, 11 and 13. I felt he was a little bit sloppy at times, and he was up against probably the best midfielder he's come up against. Well, maybe Brisbane as well, but the pressure at times was quite intense in that section, and I felt, he kept going and he kept trying to move. What I really love about Jake is his ability to move the ball through congestion. God, I can't speak. Through congestion, he doesn't just dump over the ball. He tries to carry the ball with him, with momentum. And it was a really, it probably wasn't Jake's best game, but a really good step in his development, I reckon.
Well, his work rate was good, and as you say, not his best game because he was up against really class opponents. But the good thing about that, he doesn't just stand back and look and say, "You're too good for me." He has a crack, and sometimes he'll win and sometimes I'll beat him. But I think it'll improve him every time he plays against players of that calibre.
Yep, absolutely. And it's only his, fifth or sixth game, or not even fourth or fifth game as a full-time mid.
Yep.
After having not been considered good enough at the beginning of the year to be in the 23. So strike that one up for the match committee as well. Rory Laird, I don't want to spend too much time on Rory Laird because I'm just really annoyed. 5-17. 108 metres gained. I just
you put it this way, he was almost a negative.
Not only that, there were a couple of times I watched it again, obviously, and there were a couple of times that I saw Rory Laird not go when he should have gone.
Yeah, actually, and there was one. I do know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, well, there's a couple, and I'm not just talking about when like going in for the hard agate. I'm talking about chasing, and I'm talking about smothering and putting pressure on. And there are a couple of times where he was just walking when he shouldn't have been. Has he checked out? I don't know, but sorry, Rory, that's not good enough.
Yeah, it was certainly one of his worst.
Well, he's been on a downward trajectory for the season, in my opinion, and they've got to.
I think Marty Magic's got it. Like he's playing like he's broken hearted. I think he thought he was number one midfielder, and he's actually been shoveled down the list in terms of the importance as a midfielder. And I'm not saying he's broken hearted, but he might be a little bit disillusioned about what's going on with him, and his output is reflecting that.
Well, and that's quite possible. And Rory's going to have to work through that, Macca. Now, there's two ways that can go. He either accepts his fate and accepts a different role if it's given to him, or he seeks a trade. What shouldn't happen is that the coach and the selection committee accommodate that by continuing to play him in a position that he's no longer suited to.
Or no longer required for, really.
Exactly. At the moment, what we're seeing is the club folding and continuing to play him in that role. So we've got two midfielders, prime midfielders, that are playing less than 70% time on ground. I think Laird only had, what did Laird have? I think
something like 60% each or something.
Yeah, it wasn't huge. Let me find it. Time on ground. So Crouchy had 65 and Laird had 68. Okay, and they're your two prime mids. So they're obviously rotating off the bench with each other, and that's fine. But it's a lot of time off the ground for your premier mids. That's not much more than half the game on the ground.
Yep.
So
whereas he used to be anything up to 80% time on ground.
Correct. So they're obviously doing that to rotate the two of them off, but as you saw, it ended up with the wrong coalface player on at the death. We probably could have done with Matty Crouch on instead of Rory at that point.
I 100% agree with that.
So what the coach can't do is accommodate Rory's broken heart. Rory's either got to accept it, as many players have, Macca. Look at Luke Hodge in the back end of his career. Played 3 or 4 excellent seasons off halfback and provided a lot of value both at Hawthorn and also up at Brisbane, playing that role. Yep. If he wants to do the team thing and not the Rory Laird thing, then he'll accept that role, or any role that's given to him, really. But if the club continue to accommodate him, then the individual's automatically bigger than the club again.
Well, I think the club got two alternatives. One is to tell him that he is no longer the premier midfielder. He's actually one of the lesser midfielders. Now there's probably 3 or 4 ahead of him at least, and that's the way it's going to be. And he can either accept that, or he can alternatively look around for a trade to another club.
Well, the problem with that is, and we've seen the evidence, because the same conversation should have been had with Brodie Smith about a year and a half ago.
Yes.
And it hasn't been. So just while I'm thinking about it, don't forget, if you are on Discord and you want to have your say, put your hand up and we'll be happy to have you on. And for those who haven't joined our Discord server yet, get around how many we got? We've 378 members on here, mate. So we got 1 or 2 blokes, 1 or 2 ladies as well, for that matter. So it's a good place to be, not only during the week and on game day, but during the live cast as well. It's a very vibrant community that we have, Macca. Very vibrant and very, very well versed on football. There's some interesting conversations that happen during the course of the week.
Well, there's no doubt about this mob. They know they do know their footy, and if we say the wrong thing, they'll have a crack at it, which is good.
Yeah, that's true. Lieutenant Kervis, I felt continued to his development. Had good patches during the game, quite composed. A couple of sloppy bits and pieces, but you get that with a kid, right? But I just like the way he's got a lot of time. He's sneaky tall in terms of his aerial ability. Doesn't shirk it, and probably just at times needs to just take a second and make the right decision, but was very good.
Yeah, a very good summary of him. I think he's got great potential, actually, because he is very courageous. He is prepared to work hard as well and to make position, and he does like to run. I think he will develop into a very, very good backman, and
I think he's a wingman, Macca.
Well, I'm happy with him at half-back. I'm happy with him on the wing as well. It doesn't matter. Get him in a position where he can actually run and give a lot of drive, because his kicking's pretty good too. So, I think he got a big tick for his game.
Yeah, I like him on the wing. I think he's quite good off half-back, but I think he can actually be quite dangerous running off a wing once he gets a few more games under his belt and a little bit more strength in his body to be able to break a tackle or two. But I like him in that spot. Mark Keane, I thought had a difficult day against difficult opponents and did fairly well. Obviously, went to ground there in that last one with Jordan De Goey. He'll learn from that. But De Goey is a pretty strong character, and the ball was put in the perfect spot for him. So I don't think Keane would have even got to it had he stayed on his feet anyway.
Yeah, to go very cunning. He just put enough pressure on his body without giving any chance to give it away free, which made Keane slightly unbalanced, and then he went down, which unfortunately, and which did, ended up costing us the game. But even if he stayed up, it might have been still in the same trouble, because he would have been under the ball. But overall, I thought he's been a great get for us. And you've got to remember how many games he played. It's less than about 15 or something like that.
Yeah, it's not many.
And I think he's got to, and he is serious about his career. His partner's come out here now to live with him, so I think he's going to be a good player for us for a long time.
Agreed, Mac. I really like him. I think we've lucked out on Mark Keane. I think he's going to form part of a pretty good backline for us going forward. Chase Jones we've spoken about. Brody Smith we've spoken about. Benny Keys we've spoken about. Jordan Butts, I thought, again, as long as Jordan does his role and we don't ask too much of him, I think, he's quite all right playing those bigger forwards. And, I think he gets uncomfortable when forwards pull him up the ground. He's a bit exposed. And that's probably an area that he needs to work on a little bit. He tends to get behind the ball a little bit in those circumstances, but I thought he played all right.
Best game for the year, I thought.
Yeah. We got who else we got there? We got Tex. I thought looked like he was injured. Max again played pretty well. I felt like
he played very well. No, very well. I thought he played very well. I don't think he was beaten in any contest.
No. Lockie Murphy was had a good first quarter and a bit, and then in the second half he only had 3 touches. He's in our leadership squad. Just thought I'd make that point. Will Hamill, I thought, did pretty well on Bobby Hill. Bobby Hill didn't hurt us as much as he sometimes does.
No, he didn't.
Braden Cook. What do you think of Braden Cook's game? I just feel like he's just starting to come on a bit, Macca, now.
Well, I had him for being dropped this week on last week's game, but then having said that, I think he justified his position this week. I thought that he had, 14 disposals and 4 tackles, and he kicked the goal. I thought overall, given the nature of the game and the way it was played, that he did a reasonably good job.
Yeah, This is where you find the benefit. I would have been happy for Braden to get dropped this week too. I felt like he'd had a block of games and wouldn't have been a bad idea. But it may be the fact that we didn't have an SANFL game this week probably would have been against him. But like you, I would have been happy for him to go back to the twos with a bit of a run in the mids and accumulate some more disposals, get up around that 20-25% mark, 25 disposal mark. He only had 14 touches, but what he did quite well. And he's one of the few that I would say actually did try to take the game on a little bit with his possessions. Actually, did try to be creative, and he stayed in the game a little bit longer this week than he has previously.
Yep, and no, definitely warrants to hold his spot again next week.
Yeah, so and that shows the benefit of sticking with a young kid, mate, and letting him develop, doesn't it? You let him develop in. Braden Cook's had more development in the last 4 weeks or 5 weeks that he's been picked than he did all last season in the twos.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's the point with some of these other kids. They're just sitting in the twos, rotting away. Very interested to have possibly a debate with you on Josh Rochelle. Macca, what do you think of his game?
I thought overall not bad thing, not bad. What I'm not liking about Rochelle at the moment is, I mean, he had 13 disposals, he had 5 tackles, he kicked 2 goals, and he didn't have very much time on ball, if any. So overall, I thought he was pretty good. What I'm not liking is the fact that because of all that bullshit about him carrying on too much and all the rest of it, he's not showing any enthusiasm once he's kicked the goal or anything like that. I like it much better when he comes out and creates excitement, and really, really carries on, because that helps lift his fellow teammates as well. And at the moment, twice he got gold and just sort of came back as if he's running back to a morgue. And to me, that's not Rochelle. That's counter to what the guy is. And to get the best out of him, I think he's got to be over the top.
So he's been Adelaide.
It's probably a fair comment.
Well, look, I think that maybe he's been a little bit humbled over the last couple of weeks after what happened. So he's probably himself thought, oh, look, I've got to maybe just pull it back a bit because, I can't be Larry when I've still got that hanging over my head from a couple of weeks ago. He probably feels himself, if I'm reading it right, he probably feels himself that he's been humbled, Mac. Like, he got shown up twice in that game for ducking his head. That's a humbling experience for a young lad in the big league, on national television, the whole 9 yards. So,
yeah, but I give him kudos because he did exactly what you just said, and he did what I haven't seen anybody do before. He came out and actually said that he wasn't brave enough to stand there and do it. And I thought, I haven't heard another football ever come out and say that.
No, and he has owned it. What I'm saying with regards, I guess, to your comments about his celebrations, he's probably just in himself, just probably feeling a little bit subdued. The problem that I've got with Rash is that I still think he's a bit of a flighty player. He's got some good tricks, but there's I wouldn't say. This is going to sound really weird, but I think he plays football like a soccer player. I think he's an opportunist. He doesn't straight line the ball. He doesn't drive through the contest. He doesn't impose himself physically. He's very much an outside player. He's got good agility through traffic. That's why I think he'd be a good midfielder. But he plays like a soccer player. He's opportunistic.
But he was a soccer player.
I know that.
Until I think he was about 16 years of age, he was a soccer player. So that's
I know that.
So that's one of the reasons probably why he plays like one. But having said that, he's playing on a half forward flank. It's a bloody hard position to play, and I just think that you have to be an opportunist when playing on there. You could, and also if the ball's not being delivered overly well, if it's being delivered to packs all the time, it makes it very hard for a guy like him to shine. I just thought that I thought he took the opportunities that he got, and
I wish we'd get him in the game a bit more. I wish we'd give him some more CBAs and get him a run on the ball. I really do.
Well, I think that's a very good idea, an excellent idea. Because that way you can actually get him. He doesn't just sit there on a half forward flank. But I just hated seeing him, and I know that he had that situation where he wasn't brave enough, in his own words, but he owned it. So I would still like to see him come. Because when a guy kicks a goal and comes running out all celebrating and all the rest of it, it lifts the players around him. But he's coming out like he's running to a bloody funeral. So I didn't like that.
Well, something that you will like, Macca, is the fact that we've got Nuz joining us from the audience. Good to see you, mate. How you going?
Good, thanks. Can you hear me, firstly?
You're a bit soft. Shut up, Macca. You're not right. You need to be a bit louder, Nuz, if you can. Oh, that's much better.
Is that better? All right, good. Yes, hello, everyone. Hello.
How you going, mate?
Good, thank you. Now, look, I'm no scientist, but I do believe that Rochelle did play soccer at one stage.
He did,
I have a feeling. No, he definitely played soccer, but we also forget that when he was his top under 16 year, he was one of the top rated kids in under 16s in AFL, and he transitioned from soccer to football at about 14, 15 years of age. But the key point is that he was a midfielder in his best year in under 16s, which is as a senior. So
correct.
We need to play him a bit more in the midfield, I think.
Yeah,
and what a great chance to do it this.
I think we've been saying for quite a while that he needs to be played through the midfield. He's got a nice little step. He's a bit of a clearance machine. If you look at the first few games of last season, Nuts, whenever he went into the middle, things happened. And I just, again, like they'll turn around and say, oh, he hasn't got an engine, blah, blah, blah. So give him 5 minutes a quarter. Like, let him develop in the role that he's been drafted in. Surely we didn't spend pick 6 on a friggin' forward flanker.
Well, I mean, watch us, our drafting has surprises us all. Like, where did we draft Curtin? If he's not a midfielder going forward, right, I can see Curtin, for example. I know we're talking about Rochelle, but it's a great point you make about spending pick 6 on a forward flanker potentially, and then, pick 6 on Macca, and then Pedler, who's injury prone. Thilthorpe was probably the right choice, and that draft wasn't great. But where's the midfielder? Like, we need to do something about it. We can't just trade in everyone. We need to give them opportunity, time. If it's not the right players that we're drafting in, like if we're drafting in Billy Dowling and he's really shit, then something needs to be done and become accountable. But that's not the case, because we know that Billy Dowling is playing well. We know that Zach Taylor has been playing quite well when he's not injured. Schonberg and all these other players. So we need to give them a chance. And it's just the seniors are stifling the development of the kids, and I'm absolutely jack of it at the moment. So how's this for a little tidbit? Matt Crouch's stats, right, when he was dropped 3 times in 1 year, you go back and do your own research. They are almost identical to this year. So what's different? What's different? Maybe the way he's moving a little bit more forward instead of backwards all the time. So maybe 10% improvement, maybe 5%, not much.
There's no difference.
What are we trying to do as a club? Do we really expect to play top 4 and finals and win 3 finals and get into a grand final? Or are we just hoping to please no offence, but the gold hat wearing members on the Western Wing side to make sure that they keep putting in their $600 a year?
That's Macca that you're describing there, Nuz.
I know it is. Yeah, I actually had him in my vision just then when I was...
That's very cruel. Very cruel.
I love you. That. No, but the point is that I do think the club is a bit worried, and former host Pete was saying on Twitter just before, he's like, West Coast know how to rebuild, and none of this half-assed trying to appease people. Like, they're like, you know what? If we're going to be shit, we may as well be shit. None of this half-assed nonsense. And what are we achieving at 3-6-1? What are we achieving?
Well, we're nothing.
Absolutely
It's just a nothing season.
So what's the harm in playing a kid? Like, instead of losing by 4 points, you might lose by 24. Like, we're going to forget the results in 30 minutes' time anyway. So who cares? But you're putting games into the right kids. That's what matters long term, medium term. But all we're seeing right now is a bit of short term. And the only lot I've ever seen is Braden Cook, because he has been given a run when he's not been playing great. But that's 1 out of 23 players.
You're singing from a hymn book, mate. It's something that we've been lamenting for months and months and months, unfortunately. And, you know, I don't know whether you were listening earlier, but I put it to Macca that, and Macca didn't disagree, that at 3-6-1 with finals out of the equation and with a couple of, quite winnable games ahead of us, there has never been a better time to blood some youngsters and give them a taste. So it's going to be, it's going to be.
I know. Sorry to be. You know, I agree, but you know as well as I do, because we sat at those tables in West Lakes, and we know that finals is the ceiling, just to make finals.
Yep.
And I just think, like, what are we existing for as a club if to not win a flag?
Well,
Really?
I think we're
What's the
existing to be an ongoing concern. Nuz, to be honest with you, I think that we are so corporatized that we exist to be an ongoing, viable corporate entity. I
think so.
Like, and look, let me be clear on this. There are certain parts of the club that should be focused on our commercial viability, right? There should be, like, the CEO should have a big eye on our commercial viability. You know, sections of the board should have, some of our operational staff should have, absolutely. But the football department and the director of football that reports to the board should have nothing but premierships on their mind. And ultimately, the board needs to understand that it doesn't matter how effective we are with our commercial operations. If we don't start winning flags, we are going to lose membership. So ultimately, the club needs to be driven by success.
Yeah, it's strange as well, because the way I see it is that of all the clubs in the land, I mean, we have got some of the best fans and the most patient fans. Like, we'll rock up, you know, we know we're going to lose by 100 to Hawthorn or whatever back in the day, and we'll rock up 45,000 strong, you know, in 2-degree weather. Like, we are great fans. So use it to our advantage. We're not Sydney, where we have to be at the top and get cola allowances and academies and all this. Like, you know, you go to Sydney to start losing, they drop off 20,000 immediately. So we're corporately viable no matter what we do. We're biggest team in. Oh, sorry, Feen.
No, it's all right. Nuz, let me point 2 examples of where the club completely takes their supporter base for granted. The first one was back in Stephen Trigg's days when we were called agitators.
Yes.
And the second one was when Mark Rasciuto told us that we could go and support another club if we didn't like it. If they're not 2 big indicators to you of the club's attitude to its supporters and how arrogant they are with regards to the fact that we will just turn up thick and thin, and that the club, the supporters are lucky to have the club instead of the other way around. Those two moments right there give you exactly that indication.
It's a poor attitude. Look, you know what? I'm always the over-optimist, you know that. And I think use it as a great advantage. Like, we know that we're shit, right? We know that we're not going to win close games. We know that if we make finals, it might be scraping in. We know that we're not too far away. So what better chance to actually play these kids that are going to be the future? And here's the ticker. If those kids aren't the future, then list management and recruiting needs to be held accountable, because it has been many years, many more misses than hits. And, we might say, oh, Hamish has done this or Reed has done that. That's fine. But that's their job. And it's a ruthless industry. It's not like comfortable industry where it's a government role. Like it's a highly scrutinised, ruthless, well-paid industry where there's heavy accountability. And our club hasn't had that for a long time in many departments. And it's very... It just leads to a bit of malaise around the place. And it feels like it's crept in again.
Yep. It doesn't feel like any different than 2 years ago when we had the clean out or the review or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't feel any different at all. No.
We're nearly there. We're nearly, like, just a few things. But I think big things have to change. Hamish Ogilvie has done his job to an effect, but we need to move on from him and have different point of view. Justin Reed could be arguably the same. Adam Kelly, we've mentioned him. Do we look at moving him on, having more experienced person in his place? These are positions where they've been in for many years now, and they need to be held to account because that's what you're for.
The problem is, Nuz, that you say, do we look at moving him on? Who's the we? Because that's the problem, right? The people that are actually making these appointments and making these judgment calls on personnel, that's the we. And unfortunately, the we is part of the problem. So you've got this self-perpetuating cycle of mediocrity because everyone's very comfortable. The board are very comfortable because they're not. The board are only accountable to the AFL and to the bankers, right? So as long as we keep paying our loan interest and as long as the AFL are happy with us, then that's the board done. They're good, right? Anything apart from that is just a side conversation. So these people... Sorry, go on.
Sorry, when does the AFL... is it 2028?
27.
Yeah. And look, I'm going to look to be an optimist again and say Richmond were in absolute dire straits and they stuck fat with their coach. I'm not saying Nick's is the right or wrong. I don't care. That's not this argument right now. But they had a board overthrow because they were sick of the malaise. And in 27, if I see any one of the same board members from now, 3 years prior to 27, I'll absolutely spew. It cannot happen because we haven't played finals for 7 years. It's as simple as that. And not only that, but we don't look close to even being proper finals contenders unless some actual proper structural changes happen. I still think we've got a good core list through, but we need to make sure that we harness the talent there. Because I can see people like Curtin leaving because they're getting stuffed around, because the senior players have too much say. It's all a bit same. I don't know. I'm just getting bloody frustrated, Feen. I'm just venting. Thank you for letting me vent. Anyway.
That's all right, mate. It's lovely to have you on, and as usual, you speak our language. I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. I'm just so pessimistic because I feel like I've worked in the corporate world. You guys have worked in the corporate world or whatever, and you know companies when they have a bit of a cultural stink about them, and it just feels to me as if the Adelaide Football Club has a little bit of a cultural stink about it, and because everyone that goes into that joint seems to morph into this corporatized Adelaide Football Club person. There's not a lot of tension in the place, if you ask me. There's not a lot of. It's not a competitive environment in terms of opposing views aren't allowed. You've got to toe the line. You've got to walk to the same drum and all that sort of stuff. And they're terrible places to be in terms of high performance because everyone's sort of moving to the benchmark instead of trying to exceed expectations or to push above mediocrity. And that's where I feel that Adelaide is. It's just a stinky corporation at the moment.
Yeah, the only difference between them and the corporate world, though, is in having worked in the corporate world, if you weren't bloody good at your job, they replaced you with somebody that's better, whereas we keep retaining the same people that aren't any good.
Yeah, but the thing is, Macca, that when the top of the tree are just looking for yes men, and they're just looking for people that'll toe the line and do their bidding, that's when you get a stinky culture. And what you're saying, that's the case in an environment that wants to grow and progress and get better and all the rest of it. But there are plenty of companies that aren't like that. There are plenty of companies where the leadership is arrogant and think that their way is the best way, and all they want underneath them is people to implement what they think. And there's no competitive tension. There's no mix of ideas. There's no melting pot, if you know what I mean. And I think that's what Adelaide seems to me at the moment. Everyone's singing from the same hymn book. Everyone's saying the same things, whether it's the coach, whether it's the CEO, whether it's the footy director, whether it's the bloke on radio that happens to be on the board, whether it's the bloody boot starter. Everyone is saying the same things, and everyone is doing the same things, like they're all a bunch of robots, right?
Very militaristic.
It's
top of the line,
nepotistic.
Yeah. So, I don't. This is the thing. Like, I can be an optimist and say Rochelle's great, Phil Thorpe's great, and that's a good decision. That's a good decision. But you need to have enough good decisions to win a flag. And if we can't, as fans, see us winning a flag because of these people that are in charge, then we are going to eventually leave, because we'll just be sick of it after 10, 15, 20, 30 years, how long it takes. So I'm glad that something can finally, hopefully, change in 2027. But, we look at the little positives and try and make our day happy. We nearly won, and Rochelle's good, and Rankin got 30 touches. It means bugger all if we're just going to come 9th or 8th. Because what are we doing? That's my 2 cents, because we're hitting it to win flags.
Agree, Nuz. What are we doing? That's the big question at the moment. There doesn't seem to be a plan.
Yeah. Well, we all know that Jones, Crouch, McHenry, Murphy, Robb, I could name 5 others, Smith, whether they're servants, whether they're whatever, high draft picks, we just know now that they're not part of the future going forward. We know that now. We've seen enough of them. Jones has played 90 games. We know what Crouch's ceiling and limitations are. That's well and good. You can have 1 or 2 of them. Every club has 1 or 2 players that you think, I don't really want them in the team, but the other 20 are good, so I'll kind of put up with them. Who cares? Or they might have that plus an extra kid. Not 7 or 8 of them in the same team. But not only that, you can tolerate that if you're shit, and there's no other options. We have options in the 2s. We have Oscar Ryan, who is already one of the best kicks at the club, playing in the 2s. We have Edwards, Schonberg, Dowling, Taylor, Strawn, amongst a few others as well. Not only that, but we're going to get more next year as well, Welsh and so on. So it needs to happen, and this whole fallacy of thinking we might scrape into finals, just get over it. This year, please, for the love of God, if anyone at Clubland is listening, no one freaking cares if we scrape into 8th and lose a final by 90 points.
Good point.
Essendon.
Yeah,
no
good point.
Cares. We'll forget about it the next year. In fact, some clubs actually go backwards if they play shit in finals. We need to make sure we have the solid foundation first. And that means giving Dowling 15 games left this year. That means playing Zach Taylor and not delisting him without even seeing what he can do. It's as simple as that, really as simple as that. We know what Laird can do. Give him a bell for 2 weeks. What is the harm? There is no harm. Still going to lose.
Exactly what we... Well, it's exactly what we said at the top of the show, Nuz. We went through half a dozen players, and you listed pretty much all the players that we spoke of for the same reason. It's like there is no we know their ceiling. There's no good reason why they need to be in the side now. We are out of finals contention. We are in our softest part of the fixture for the season. There is absolutely no reason why these kids don't get a run. It would be absolutely criminal if Zach Taylor didn't get a good run at it when we've been playing Ned McHenry for 60-odd games or however much it is, it'd be absolutely criminal if Will Dowling didn't get a run this year, even though they're, weirdly leaving him out of best players lists in the SANFL. It's absolutely criminal that Sam Berry plays 3 good games in a row and then gets turfed back into the twos and can't break in when Lockie Murphy can. I mean, there are some criminal decisions, but now before they could make an excuse rightly or wrongly, we want to play experience, we're still in the hunt for the finals. There is now no excuse anymore. There is literally no excuse anymore. We're not going for finals. We're out of it for another year. We've got 15 games to go or whatever. We have a fantastic opportunity to get games into kids, and there's no use and no value in playing, getting games into Smith and Laird and all these blokes. So just do it. And if the club doesn't do it, they're not serious. They're just not serious, and it's as simple as that.
There must be some sort of metric about games played and experience in this fallacy of experience, but I just have to lead people to see one thing, and that's Sydney's midfield. Sydney are miles ahead of the pack, and their whole midfield is every single person is under 24. Under 24. Warner, Rowbottom, Gordon, and one other I forgot.
Yep.
Madness.
And we spoke that, again, you should have been here at the start of the show. Nuz, you're just recapping everything we said about half an hour ago. But we spoke about Luke Parker being in the twos and being so frustrated about being in the twos, he does something very uncharacteristic. And that's called integrity at selection, right? And John Longmire is prepared to drop one of his favourite sons into the twos to such a degree that, it causes Luke Parker to do something like that. It's a classic case in point of how you evolve and iterate your squad over time. And that's what we fail to do. We allow these blokes to hang on for dear life until the bitter end. Richard Douglas, Scotty Thompson comes to mind.
20 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. We do it all the
25
time.
years.
And that's why I think it's cultural.
Is it just us or other clubs do it too? I don't think other clubs do it anywhere near. Even Melbourne, right? When Melbourne were diabolically bad, right, and still weren't making finals, but you saw a glint of hope with Petrarca and Oliver when they were starting. They even had the audacity to get rid of the one guy that stuck fat, Nathan Jones, poor Jonesy, and they still dropped him.
Yeah.
They said, Jonesy, I'm really sorry. We can't do it. Like, if anyone deserved to keep playing, right, if you want to talk about good guys and this and that, it's him. And even they could do it when they were shitter than us. So what's our deal?
Yeah. Scoot in the chat says, Phoenix, we understand the selection's needed, but the mass membership will not understand that strategy. That's the point, Scoots. Are we selecting to appease the masses, or are we selecting to win games of football? Because I can guarantee you that the masses may not like it, but when we start winning, they'll like it. So are we that whole attitude of we need to appease the masses is leading us to mediocrity. The selection should be to win games of football, and the membership will come. So
we're too scared to rip the band.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's been great having you on, mate. Hope you're doing well. Your health all right?
Yeah, it's getting there. It's very slow. The longer it lingers on, the harder it is to get rid of symptoms. So like I was struggling earlier today and only just got my second wind now. So that's why I decided to come on. So thank you for having me.
No.
But I just wanted a quick one point about Dowling, just for 1 minute. And I call bullshit on the club because it makes me furious inside because I hate being lied to blatantly.
Yeah,
gaslighting.
Exactly.
It's from an old...
Yep.
It's from an old movie from the 1950s. That's where the term comes from, the Gaslight, the movie. Look it up. Anyway, Billy Dowling, right? We all know what footballers do, and we study football. We watch 8 games a week, whatever. But Billy Dowling to not be named in the best players is pure gaslighting and nothing more than that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
It was just, you know what, Crows people, Adelaide Football Club, Tim, Adam, Nix, stop it. Fucking stop it, please. It is insulting to our intelligence.
Yeah.
We deserve better than that. Just because you don't feel like you want to play him, or you just tell us why. Say we want to play him in the midfield more in the SANFL. So then when he goes into the AFL, then he's more ready. We don't want to stuff him around in the half-forward flank. If that's your reason, tell us. Don't be so secretive. When were we secretive? When shit hit the fan in 2019? You know, when Chapman called us whatever he did. You know, it's gone back to that again. Be open, be honest. Say what you need to say about Delling, but don't pull the wool over our eyes. It's as simple as that. Be
cultural,
better.
mate. It's cultural. Telling you now.
Absolute nonsense, that is. I'm sorry. I will not be lied to blatantly. It's as simple as that. Otherwise, I'm going to take my money and 1,000 other people with me.
That was a great example you chose there, because he got 30-odd possessions and never got a mention in the best players.
Yeah.
No, absolute nonsense. They're doing it on purpose, you know. So we don't keep saying Dowling's name. Well, it's going to be louder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nuz, I'm not going to lie to you, mate. It's been very good having you on. I'm glad to have you on anytime, you know that. And hopefully your health improves somewhat over the coming weeks, and hopefully the club doesn't destroy your faith in humanity like it's destroying mine.
and I second that about your health. No, all the best, mate.
Thank you, Macca. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Podcast coming out either this week or the week after. Let's see how we go.
Look forward to it, mate.
Thanks, guys. Speak soon.
Good luck, mate. See ya.
See ya. Well, Mac, we're just about ready to finish up. A couple of things. First of all, before we get on to next week's game against, who is it? West Coast, isn't it? Next
West
week.
Coast.
Just a couple of things. I will next week be coming to you from the middle of Queensland. So we will have the podcast on as normal. Normal time, normal place. It'll be a cut down version of graphics like we're doing tonight, which everyone seems to enjoy better anyway, so that's cool. So yes, but hopefully we don't have any tech problems, because I'll be doing it from a laptop rather than my current suite of technology brilliance.
As Vardy Magic said, what could possibly go wrong, Feen?
Shut up, Vardy. Why don't you come on for once? And then after that, I'll be away for 3 weeks. Now, I'm going to put a poll up. I'm going to put a poll up on Twitter and one on YouTube for our YouTube community as well. Let me just quickly just have a look at the fixture. So round 12, we've got a Saturday afternoon game against Hawthorn. What date's that? That's June the 1st. I'll be in... I'll still be here, actually. I'll still be here. So that's cool. We can do that one. And then the following one, we got a Thursday. Oh, no, I won't be doing that one because that's a bloody Thursday night against Richmond. The following week, we've got a Saturday evening. So June the 15th, I reckon we're going to premiere, Macca, a post-game weekend wrap. It's Adelaide versus the Swans at 7 p.m. on a Saturday night. It'll finish at 9, which will be about 6 o'clock on a beautiful beach in Da Nang in Vietnam.
Yep.
I'll be about 20 lines in, or whatever they drink over there, singers or whatever, 20 beers in, and we will and I'll have watched the game on some screen at some sportsman's bar somewhere. And we're going to have a post-game. If people are up for it, we will have a post-game weekend wrap that weekend rather than the normal Sunday. See how we go.
That'd be very interesting, actually.
You be in for that?
But we might be more passionate.
I'll be more drunk.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
The following weekend we got to buy, so that's fine. And then the following weekend I'm back. So yeah, it'll be situation normal, except that Sydney Swans game, I reckon, which is on the, what did I say it was, the bloody 16th or whatever it was. I reckon we'll do a Saturday Night Live post game from the beach from the pub, wherever the hell I am, weekend wrap. So that'll be good fun.
Okay, that'll work.
And you have to wear your holiday attire as well, like.
Oh God. Okay.
I think that's reasonable.
Hollywood, yeah.
Yeah, Scoot said, wear your holiday attires.
I wear a garland around my neck or something, Scoot.
All right, there's a bit to come before that, though. Obviously, next weekend we're as normal. As I said, I'll be up in Queensland, but that should work fine. It'll be a game against West Coast Mac. Poor. It's not as cut and dried as what we thought it might have been, eh?
Well, I watched it. Melbourne could warm against them. In fact, West Coast looked very, very good. Now, I just don't. I will say this though: Gawn looked like he shouldn't have been playing. He looked very.
We're talking about West Coast Adelaide. We already been through that. You already said that at the beginning of the show 9 days ago.
Yeah, but that helped West Coast look very good. That was the point I'm making. They might not be as good as they look, but on paper they look very, very good.
Okay, West Coast got a good record in Adelaide.
Well, they are, but if you have a look at over the last 4 or 5 weeks, their record's pretty good.
I'm saying at Adelaide Oval, they've actually got a good record.
So, I'll tell you what. Somebody says if we do lose, it will be epic. It sure will. I'll tell you what, everybody will be beaten for Nixon's head if we do lose.
So I don't know whether people on the chat can tell, but Mac is running out of batteries, so we better wind it up, Mac. What do you reckon? We're going to get over the line
against West Coast? Well, I think we'll
who else are we talking about?
Sorry, what was it? What was the question?
Yes, against West Coast. Do you think we might get up?
I think we'll win by about 25 points.
25 points against West Coast?
Yep.
And how many changes from this week unforced?
2.
2? All right. I'm saying one unforced change plus Isaac. And I think we might lose by 4 goals.
No, I can't.
I wasn't asking your opinion. That's my opinion. I think we lose by 4 goals.
I think we'll win by that plus 1 point.
Yes, you mentioned that. All right. Well, look, thanks to everyone who's joined us on Discord and YouTube. Once again, it's been a fantastic viewership by everyone concerned, and nice to have Nuz on board too with a bit of a chat. Always good to see Nuz on board. So thanks to everyone on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube for joining us. Thanks to everyone on Discord. Don't forget you can join us on all our socials, etc, etc, etc. Give us a like if you're watching us on YouTube and you haven't already done so. Hit subscribe if you want to have a watch of us again. You think we're all right? We're not too bad, are we, Mac? Usually?
No, I think we're pretty good.
Yeah. In the meantime, everyone stay safe, have a good week, and we'll see you next Sunday night. Good night.
Yeah, good night. Good night all.